don't be afraid to think big, man. Like sometimes we just think like, oh, I'll just go like one level ahead. So I was charging 50 per minute, now I'll charge 60. But like, don't be afraid
Yeah.
to like 5x what you're thinking about. So what would it look like, yeah, to work on like a mid-core project or a AAA project? So I just got off a call with my pro group students, and we had a really, really powerful chat today about how we hold ourselves back from things that we actually want. I've been reading this book recently called The Mountain Is You. Really, really good book. And one of the things that it was talking about was that there's constantly this tension between the things that we know that we want and the habits that we engage in that we're not aware of that actually stop us from getting what we want. Now, this really varies depending on what you're trying to achieve and who you are and the experiences that you've had in your life and the beliefs that you've formed. But I can definitely relate to the idea that I've seen a lot of composers deal with where we want higher paying work, we want cool clients, we want all these things for our career and our artistic fulfillment, and yet for some reason we're just not getting it. And we can't figure out why. Maybe we've kind of plateaued at this point where we're getting work, but it's like the clients kind of just throw a lot of revisions our way. They don't really value us. They don't pay us what we want to get paid, what we think we're capable of. And for some reason, no matter what we do, we just can't get out of that rut, and we don't know why. I have experienced this in many times at many levels in my career. But something I've been thinking about recently, and we talked about in the group, was how in so many ways we actually hold ourselves back. Eventually, what starts to happen is we get used to a certain level of comfort, and in that comfort, we forget to push ourselves into discomfort. What does that look like specifically? Well, I've been thinking about like my own clientele and some of the clients that I've worked with and my favorite clients to work with, and I've asked myself, how come some of the clients I work with are incredible and amazing and pay me super well and value me and are just creatively fulfilling, and then some of them are like just okay, they're okay gigs, but for some reason I keep getting those gigs. Well, I think about my beliefs and I think about what is my comfort zone, and what I've begun to realize is I have held myself back in many ways. It's actually got a lot to do with me and the discomfort that I've avoided feeling. For example, going and reaching out to someone who is much, much more accomplished than I am. What does that do to me? It brings to light that like I haven't achieved as much as this person. And in many ways that can feel really uncomfortable to deal with. And then to go to ask for help for someone like that is really uncomfortable. And so what might I do? Well, I might stick to my comfort zone. I might stick with clients who I know I can get the job done and I'm confident. I thought about when I first did Kung Fu Panda, the Dragon Knight, doing additional music with Bob Lydecker. When I started that gig, within about 3 weeks, I felt super depressed because I thought I was qualified for this thing, and I very quickly realized I had a lot to learn. We started off by doing a couple cues. The first cue was about a minute long, took me like 10 hours. It took forever. And here I am being asked to do 5 minutes of music a week. I was like, how am I going to do this, And then I did another cue, and I remember I got a revision from Bob. It was a suggestion on how to do it, and I tried again and didn't quite fit, and I tried again and it still didn't fit. I tried again, and then eventually Bob was like, hey, I'm going to take this part, just like watch and see what I did so you can learn for next time. But I felt so deflated by that process. I was like, oh my gosh, am I even cut out for this kind of work? Can I even handle doing animated scores? Now, because I was on that gig and I'd committed to it, I had to stick with it, right? And over time, what happened was I started to get more qualified, started to build my confidence. And eventually, by the end of the gig, having worked on 3 seasons for a year, I felt super confident with the music I was doing. I knew when something would get approved. I knew when something wasn't clicking. I'd built that confidence. But the key here is I didn't build that confidence in a bubble. I didn't just work on something and then say, I'm ready for Dreamworks now, here we go. No, I learned on the job. I said yes to it, not fully sure if I'd be capable of doing it, but just believing in myself and hoping that I'd be able to be qualified and accepting that I was going to learn on the job. I was willing to be uncomfortable, experience discomfort publicly, out there, not in this insulated bubble of my music, but out there in the real world doing work. And this, I believe, is what holds composers back at all levels. This isn't just a level 1 problem. This isn't like, oh, I want to get my first jobs, but I feel stuck. It's there, But it's also there for the person who is an established AAA composer who's gotten so comfortable with a certain type of work that they stop taking creative risks, or they stop reaching out to new clientele themselves. They've forgotten how to find their own clients. This exists at all levels. And so what we need to do in order to break through, to get to the next level of what we want, is to get really honest with ourselves about where we are holding ourselves back. Where are we really afraid to experience discomfort? What does it mean to experience that discomfort? What does it mean about ourselves? What are we like avoiding feeling in order to get to that point of growth? And I think if you can do this, and if you can build that awareness within yourself to recognize that, it makes it that much more effortless for you to recognize this is what you have to be willing to experience in order to grow. I have to experience this discomfort. I have to take this risk. I have to be vulnerable. That's what it takes for real growth, not insulated growth in a bubble, but real tangible growth, getting outcomes that you didn't dream were possible.